Hi, welcome to a special edition or a behind the scenes edition of the podcast Politics Unfiltered. I figured I'd take an opportunity to answer some of the questions that we get in emails. Two other questions that we always get. Number one is, are we filming this podcast at the White House? No, absolutely not. We're not filming this podcast at the White House. We're filming this podcast at our studio here in Memphis. We built a set that looks like the Oval Office. Voila! This is the set that we use for the Politics Unfiltered podcast. And then second question that I always get is, how do we bring this podcast to life? What do we use to make it happen? How many people are involved in the process? So I figured I'd give you all a behind the scenes tour of the actual set so that you see how the set is made. And then secondly, I'll give you a breakdown on the lighting, the camera, and the sound that makes this all happen. Come on, let's go. All right. First, let's talk about what you see, because this video quality that you see right now is very high quality video, and it's filmed from the same camera that we use on this podcast, but on all of the podcasts that film inside of our studios. We use the Sony FX30, which is part of Sony's cinema line. It's like an entry-level cinema camera. When you pair this camera with Sigma lenses, the quality is insane. For our wide shots or medium wide shots, like you're seeing right now, we use the Sigma 16 millimeter lens because it gives you a crisp wide shot. When we do our close-ups, we use the Sigma 56 millimeter lens because it's great and it's super good in low light situations. This camera in itself, though, if you're going to use this camera for podcasts, which you should, especially if you want 4K quality or full HD quality at an affordable rate, this camera is really good at that. Most podcasts are pretty long format. So if you're going to film for an hour or more, this camera is good because it has a built-in internal fans, keeps the cameras cool. The cameras don't overheat where you have to stop and restart shooting your podcast. This camera model also comes with an XLR attachment, which allows you to get high quality podcast audio directly into the camera without having to go through an additional mixer or having to buy an additional recorder if you can afford that model. But if you can't, this camera also has a 3.5 millimeter audio jack so that you could record audio directly into this camera as well. This camera is super great. The quality is insane when you pair it with the right lighting and with the right lenses. So that's what you see when you see the Politics Unfiltered podcast. This is a great camera for podcast recording. Sony's FX30 from their cinema line. All right, next, let's talk about what you hear. Because right now, you're hearing me on the Shure SM7 DB. In all of our studios, we use the Shure SM7 DB microphone. That quality that you hear right now, that's coming from the microphone, this very microphone. This microphone is a very, very powerful podcast microphone. It's been used not just for podcasts, but for some of the best recording studios in the country. If you can afford to get this microphone, it's great. There's another version of this microphone, an older version, the Shure SM7B. The difference between the two is that this microphone has a built-in preamp. If you get the Shure SM7B, you have to buy an additional preamp that you have to plug the microphone into. But this is a great candidate when you want the best audio quality for your podcast, the Shure SM7 DB. And for lighting of the podcast, we use the Amaran 100DS model. This is the light that we use to bring this podcast to life so that you can see all of this. Voila! But it's also a very inexpensive option. And the way we use it, if you're a one-man show, you're just a single podcaster, you don't have a lot of guests. I use two of them on this set, one on each side of the set. But if you're just a one-man show, here's a great solution that you could use. The podcast is on a rolling stand. So you could take this rolling stand, mount the Amaran 100D to the top of the stand, kind of sort of like we're doing here. And then we use a globe diffuser. You can put this globe diffuser right on the front of here, and it gives you a fairly widespread lighting setup. And you can move this lighting wherever you decided to move your camera. If you had a camera hosted here, if you had a mic hosted on here, you could move this, stand around with you wherever you go. But we use the Amaran 100D throughout our studios. It's a great lighting option. It gives a clean look. You can change the color temperature on it, and it gives you a super bright setup. So that's what we use for audio, video, and lighting. So now to the fun part. Let's tour the actual set. Our goal was to try to recreate the most noticeable part of the Oval Office, which is the Resolute desk and the windows behind the Resolute desk, which usually has the American flag and the seal of the president hanging behind. On the walls, we use the same taupe wallpaper that the White House currently has, and we included some Politics Unfiltered specific artwork. You see the Statue of Liberty with Politics Unfiltered over her mouth. Also, you see a small bust of President Obama. On the other side, we tried to replicate that same design, but on this side, we included a photograph of George Washington with Politics Unfiltered over his mouth and a bust of Martin Luther King. So that's the overall wide angle of the set. Let's talk about two things, the desk and the rug. First, let's start with our replica of the Resolute desk. We tried to include some of the same moldings that's on the Resolute desk. Not a perfect match, but close enough for the podcast, especially since we're just recreating a mini version of the Oval Office. But most noticeable is the presidential seal in the middle. It is ingrained, and that molding is there pretty good. Also, I don't know if you remember the photograph of the young JFK crawling through the Resolute desk, but I wanted something cool, so this thing actually opens up as well to give it a little flair. Next, let's talk about the rug. We don't get a chance to show off the rug. If you're watching the podcast, you don't get to see this very often, but there is a blue rug with the presidential seal in the middle of it with stars around it and the words E pluribus unum. That's actually a pretty cool asset to the set as well. And there you have it, a behind the scenes look at how we bring the podcast Politics Unfiltered to life. Make sure you tune in every Monday for brand new episodes. And if you have questions that you want us to answer, make sure you send an email or drop it in the comments, and we'll be sure to get with you. This is Politics Unfiltered. I'm out.